So in the middle of our relationship series, we talked about agape love last week. We talked about agape love being a self-sacrificing type of love, a love that would take a bullet for someone they loved, a love that would lay down their life as Jesus gave us the ultimate example as he died on the cross for us. We talked about living that agape love if it is a characteristic. In fact, we said last week that it is the distinguishing characteristic between Christianity and all other religions, agape, self-sacrificing love. And if it is a mark that sets Christianity apart from all other religions, then agape love ought to set apart every Christ follower from everyone else in this world. It ought to be a distinguishing characteristic in your life and in my life. And we looked last week specifically at loving our enemies and loving our neighbors. Kind of the broad spectrum of your life and in your circles of influence. Who do you love and how do you love them with a self-sacrificing, Christ-like love? This week, we're gonna narrow the focus into our families. If we're called to love our enemies and we're called to love our neighbors, how much more should we demonstrate agape, self-sacrificing types of love in our families? There's a stat that is staggering that the divorce rate inside the church is equal to the divorce rate outside the church. Now, that's not altogether true, but it's close enough that it should scare us to ask ourselves, how can we bring in this self-sacrificing, forever type of love within our families, within our marriages, within the church? How can we be set apart? If agape love sets apart Christ followers from everyone else in the world, we ought to instill agape, self-sacrificing type of love in our marriages that set our families apart from what the world's standards are. And when we do that, it is a foundation that we build it on. Now, if you're single, if you're widowed, if you're divorced, you need to pay attention because this is a foundation of what the family needs to be. A story I love to tell on our pastor, Dr. Young, his vision is when they built the Jane Elder building, they built a 4-story education and multi-purpose building, but when you got on the elevator in the early 90s to go to the 4th floor, 3rd floor of the Jane Elder building, there was this mysterious 5th and 6th buttons on the elevator. People would ask all the time, why is there a 5 and 6 in a building that is only 4 stories high? Because in his vision, he went ahead and made the elevator shafts deep enough for a 5th and 6th floor. He knew in that area being landlocked that they were gonna grow and they were gonna reach new people and they were gonna need to expand. So he made all of the advanced preparatory deals in place that he could add a 5th and 6th floor. All the electric was done, all the plumbing was done, the foundation was built for a 5th and 6th floor, even though it was just 1 through 4. That is the biblical foundation of an agape marriage. You need to be building the foundation. You need to be set that if God opens the door for you to start a family, and to be a part of something that needs to be set apart from the culture, that you have the foundation, that you have the elevator shaft, that you have your electric, everything is set in order for you to build higher. And by the way, yes, within 10 years, they had exploded in growth. They needed more space. The 5th and 6th floors were added. That is really what we're doing as we lay a foundation of what your marriage, your family, your agape love, that commitment needs to look like. Now, if you're taking notes, I'm gonna give you a very extensive definition of love. When I counsel couples who are about to get married, I oftentimes sit down with them and tell them to define love. Define love in your relationship. And they give me some great poetic, sometimes just unbelievable answers. And I break it down in such simplistic terms that I want us to understand that love, agape love that will allow us to build families that will be godly families, is defined by one word, and that's commitment. If you want to love someone with an agape type of love, you be committed. The reason that we fail so often in living out that self-sacrificing love is we are not committed. When I look at my bride and I say, I love you, doesn't mean that I like you, doesn't mean that sometimes I'm not even appreciating her enough. It doesn't mean that I'm feeling a certain way. What I'm saying is, I love you. I am committed to you. In fact, Jesus really expands on that when he says, this is how I'm going to establish love. Mark chapter 10, starting off with verse 6, Jesus quotes a passage we've been quoting here during this relationship series often. It says, but from the beginning of creation, God was made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother. The two shall become one flesh, so that they are no longer two, but one. Verse 9, what therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. The establishment of marriage, when Jesus puts his exclamation point on the two shall become one flesh, this is what he says. Be committed. Don't let anything separate a man and a wife, a husband and a wife. You be committed every day of your life. And so if we look at commitment and we look at this relationship that is going to be committed, it really takes 4 steps or 4 areas that we can do. The first one is commitment starts with a covenant or with vows. Commitment starts with a covenantal vow. Now, the world says you don't need a piece of paper to express your love. Let me translate that for you. If someone says, I don't need a piece of paper to say I love you, this is really what he or she is saying. I'm not committed enough to you to shut the door to all of my options. I like you. I may even feel pretty affectionate about you. But if I don't want to commit by taking a vow, by standing in front of in a church, in front of family and friends and God, and commit my love to you till death do us part, then I'm really not committed to you. I may have feelings towards you. I may enjoy the relationship we're in, but I'm leaving my options open. No, commitment starts with a covenant or a vow. We live in a culture that has a consumer mindset or approach to marriage. We live in a consumer world. What's in it for me? What kind of contract? I don't want a long-term contract with my cell phone. I don't want a long-term contract with my electric company. I want to be able to get out as quickly as possible. That has bled over into our relationships, into our families, to where we are so quick to get out of a relationship. There was an article written in the New York Times by Tara Parker Pope. She wrote an article entitled this, "The Happy Marriage is the Me Marriage." She said in this that it used to be about us and now it is about me. It used to be we, and that's transitioned to me. She says, this isn't a commentary on what marriage is doing. This is the way it should be. She argues in this article that if you are about yourself, if you look to get your needs met, if you just desire to be happy and pursue what makes you happy, then you'll have a better marriage. No thought of commitment. No, just even an idea of saying, you know what, marriage may be about us. It may be about we. No, we're gonna make it all about me. That is the approach, the consumer approach that our culture says that marriage is about. What have you done for me lately? What is it? What's in it for me? How are you meeting my needs? Never, how can I meet your needs? How can I serve you? How can I love you? How can I build an agape type of love in the midst of our marriage? Okay, so when you stand up, when you make that commitment, you take a vow. Now, as a pastor, I don't recommend writing your own vows, okay? Because it gets ugly. These are some of the vows I pulled off a very reliable source called the internet. These are some of the vows that people have written in the last couple years. I vow to be your spell checker, your grammar friend, to tell you when things need a hyphen. I promise to be your partner and exercise with you, even though I'm much faster than you are. Most of all, I promise to try things, even though I'm sure that I'm not gonna like them, just because you say, try this. Another one, I vow not to carry on watching Netflix series that we start together without at least pretending the first time, that when I see it, that it's the first time I've seen it. I vow not to keep score, because I'm always winning anyway. I promise to share the covers, leave the lights on, make sure the toilet paper, there was a lot of them about toilet paper. That was really in a lot of vows. We're obsessed with toilet paper. COVID showed us that. It says, I vow not to use all the hot water and to do as many dishes as I can stomach, as long as we both shall live, so help me God, with an emphasis on so help me God. I promise to love and honor you during the off season. Now that's commitment, y'all. One person said, just one thing I have to tell you, I'm totally worth it. That's that self-sacrificing humility that you really want. I love this one. I promise to buy takeout for you every night because I love you too much to allow you to fall victim to my cooking. It says, I promise to like your selfies within a reasonable time frame. I promise to love you even when you refuse to watch football. Promise to cherish you even when you blow a week's salary on yet another handbag. I promise to understand you even when you are mad at me because something happened in a dream. And then the real serious commitment right here, and these are actual vows. With this ring I thee wed, to have and to hold and to love, through turkey season, deer and duck, and even squirrel and dove season. I will be to you a rock of strength on which you can depend. I will bless you with my presence when hunting season ends. Turkey beards and antlers I will keep in their due place, and will only leave on hunting trips with a smile upon my face. He even rhymed in there, it's pretty good. I will vow no excessive bragging when my catch is rather small, and my thoughts will always be on you, though the woods may often call. And so it is with deep devotion I say the words I do, for no greater love in my life that I'll find than hunting and you. And then since it's Home Run Sunday, I thought I would include this one. I promise to love you as much as I do the Chicago Cubs, and to not hold the black and white striped dress against you. For this day forward, I will listen to all your complaints about the mall if you say them during the off season, and promise to retire my baseball cap and face paint for public outings. Now that's love right there. I will love you in sickness and in health from this day forward until death parts us, or until you become a White Sox fan. Those are vows. See, the thing is, we often approach our vows, our covenant, that relationship with me in mind, with now in mind. But you probably stood in a church or some venue in front of your pastor and said something like, in sickness and in health, for better or worse, richer or poorer. Do you realize when you vowed those things and said, I do, I will, I promise, that half of those were bad? Half of those, I think when we stand up there with just such hope in our eyes, we only hear the richer and the better and the health. And we just glaze right over the fact that half of the things that we're vowing to is I'm gonna be committed to you in the circumstances that absolutely stink. I'm gonna be committed to you. I am vowing to you. And the vows aren't about how I feel right now, but what I'm committing to in 5 years or 10 years, in 50 years. When you enter into a covenant relationship, you're saying, I know things are gonna get rough. I know there will be worse times and poorer and sickness. I know there'll be circumstances that will try us to the end, but I vow that this will be till death do us part. That's a vow. That's a commitment. That's a covenant relationship. That's not based on consumerism. What's in it for me? How do I feel? How do I like you today? But it's based on I love you and I'm committed to our marriage, to our Lord, to our family, and I'm committed to making this work even when it's difficult. A commitment relationship, an agape love starts with a covenantal vow of you saying, I do, till death do us part. What God has joined together, let no man separate. Commitment starts with a covenant. The second thing is commitment goes beyond my feelings. Commitment surpasses everything that I feel. We talked about it last week. When Jesus said, love your enemies, he disassociated love, agape love, with feelings. Because Jesus wasn't saying that person that frustrates you, that person that really speaks evil against you and malice intent, then I want you to feel all warm and fuzzy when you see them. Oh, here he comes in the office. Oh, she posted again. I can't wait to read it. He doesn't say transform your feelings and supernaturally change these ill feelings toward, oh man, I really love that person. I like him. I feel great. I have all these warm fuzzies. He takes feelings and he separates them from the agape commitment type of love. And that's 100% what we do in marriage. When you say I do, here's what you're saying. I do even when I don't feel it. I'm committed even when these feelings fade. In fact, sociologists and biologists have studied the endorphins that our bodies naturally produce when you're dating. When you start dating and she walks in the room or he walks in the room and you get these butterflies, that's an endorphin. Your body is doing that. You're not telling it to do it. It naturally does that. Every person that has studied this natural phenomenon agrees to one thing. It ends. Some people say 12 months, some people say 18 months. The latest people say 24 months. That when she holds your hand, it may not produce an endorphin that makes you go, oh, this is the greatest day ever. And these feelings that you have, when they fade, commitment stays. And the greatest news that I can tell you is that 2/3 of all couples who've stated they were in an unhappy marriage, when they commit to fight and work and commit through the loss of feelings, that within 5 years, they all state, 2/3 of the couples say, you know what, I'm in a happy and an above average marriage. I love the place that I'm in. If you just worry about the commitment over the feelings, your commitment has to surpass the feelings of where you have lost that butterfly feeling, those endorphins. And you know what, you say, I see this person, I'm gonna enjoy holding their hand even though it doesn't give me the butterflies and the emotions that it once gave me. Why? Because I'm committed to this agape relationship. Because my love for him or her is beyond how I feel today. That's love, that's agape, that's commitment. And then the third thing is, as you get to the third thing, it is the fact that your commitment, it is expressed by your actions. It is expressed by your actions. Love is more than a feeling. In fact, when you do the things you do for your spouse, for your kids, you're demonstrating your agape type of love more so when they're not perfect, more so when you're frustrated, more so when you don't have the feelings of like, but you're still gonna love them and commit to them. I love this example because it's perfect with kids. We have an agape type of love for our kids, do we not? Even when that baby is a little bit colicky and cries in the middle of the night, you don't wake up with this emotion of, oh yes, she's crying again. I was just getting into my REM sleep and you know what, I was gonna be well rested tomorrow. I don't want that. I wanna get up and interrupt my night's sleep by going and feeding and comforting and loving my baby. But we do it. And the more you do it, the more when it's difficult, you get up and you love that baby, the more that you express your love by serving that child, the more that you act selflessly, exactly what 1 Corinthians 13 says, the more that you sacrifice and love and serve in actions, the more that the feelings will follow. It's the same thing when they're teenagers. You know, when your teenager says, Mom, Dad, I need a ride to my practice. And they've been perfect, you know? Their bed is made, they have all A's. They said, yes, ma'am. You know, teachers are calling just to say what a joy it is to teach your child. You know, the things that you post on social media all the time, but they're not true. And they say, hey, I need a ride to practice. You bet I'll give you a ride. Hop in the car, let's go. What do you want to listen to? That's not agape love. It's when they've frustrated you to no end. It's when you have gotten a call from a teacher or the progress report came out and it's not up to standards. It's when their bed's not made, their room's a mess, everything seems to be a mess and say, I need a ride to practice, and you say, all right, let's go. That's love. And the more that you serve and the more that you love and the more that you in actions live out your agape love for your kids, it's amazing how the feelings will follow. It is the same way in your marriage. Husbands, love and serve your wives. Wives, love and serve your husbands. The more that you do that, even when the feelings, especially when the feelings aren't there, the more that you go out of your way to do the things that she wants you to do or do the things that he wants you to do, the more that your feelings will follow. It seems counterintuitive, but it works. The same way Jesus told us to pray for our enemies. And I promise you start praying on a regular basis for your enemies. Not that, coal would be heaped down on their head or that they would get stuck in traffic or that their iPhone would crash. Not those type of prayers. I'm talking about legitimate prayers for their well-being and their salvation and their benefit. The more that your feelings will soften for that person and the more that you'll have a love and a respect for them. The more in marriage that you serve, even when and especially when you don't feel it. So, pastor and author Tim Keller wrote a book called The Meaning of Marriage. And in it he says this: our culture says that feelings of love are the basis for actions of love. And of course that can be true. But it is truer to say that actions of love can lead consistently to feelings of love. Love between two people must not, in the end, be identified simply with emotions or merely with dutiful action. Married love is a symbiotic, complex mixture of both. Having said this, it is important to observe that of the two, emotions and actions, it is the latter that we have the most control over. It is the action of love that we can promise to maintain every day. Right now, you can commit to acting out your love. You can't commit to how you're gonna feel. You can't tell me, Stephen, you know what, in 2 years, I'm gonna have great emotions for my spouse. But you can commit today to saying everything that I do will be to self-sacrifice, to love, to serve, to cherish my spouse. I can commit today. Circumstances may make my emotions and my feelings tank and hit rock bottom. But commitment says I can serve my wife, my family, my kids. I can serve them today and tomorrow, regardless of how I feel, regardless of my emotions. I can choose, I can commit to serving my family. And when you do, trust me, the emotions will follow. The frustrations that you're feeling will evolve into love and cherish and feelings that will say, not only am I committed and gonna serve my spouse, but I'm gonna enjoy serving my spouse. Commitment is about action. Commitment is about service. The final thing about commitment, we need to understand that commitment provides great freedom. We've heard that saying, the old ball and chain, right? You get married, who wants to do that? You'll be this enslaved to this relationship. But the truth of the matter, when you stand in front of a pastor and you vow your commitment, you vow your love, you vow till death do us part, that what God has joined together, nothing will separate. You wake up the next morning in a freedom you will never experience outside the holy matrimony of marriage. Here's why. If you're living together, you still wake up and go, man, I hope my breath smells good. I hope my hair is perfect. I hope he likes the meal. I hope she likes this, what I'm doing. Because you know what? This may be the last day. I don't know if they're gonna love me tomorrow because we're not committed. We may be living together. We may be doing things that are outside of God's will. But you know what? I still have to live up. I still have to work at this relationship. If I don't work, he may be gone. If I don't work at it, she may leave. But you know what? Now that I've made this commitment, now that I have a ring on my finger and have stood and exchanged vows, nothing can separate us. Bad breath, bad hair, bad meals, bad attitudes, nothing. There is tremendous freedom in waking up next to your bride or your groom and saying, you know what? We're in this for the long haul. We're committed, regardless of our feelings, regardless of our circumstances, regardless of what happens. We are committed. The best illustration, the best example of this freedom that is found within this commitment is my relationship with Jesus. I entered into a relationship with Jesus in 1986. I said, I love you and I'm committing my life to you. He said, I love you, I'm gonna save you, I'm gonna forgive you, I'm gonna give you peace and purpose, and never will I leave you, nor will I forsake you. He said that he who began a good work in me will be faithful to complete it to the end. He gives me promises that this salvation that I experienced is forever. Nothing I can do will make God love me more. Nothing I can do will make God love me less. And in my relationship, in that salvation that I have in Jesus, there is a tremendous freedom. I don't wake up today going, man, if I don't read, I may lose my salvation. If I don't help an old lady across the street, then I may not have enough good marks to get me into heaven. No, I wake up saying that nothing can separate me, Romans 8. Nothing, not height, nor depth, nor demons, nor angels, nor anything in all of creation can separate me from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus, my Lord, and that is freedom. So I walk in this relationship with Jesus. I serve him, I obey him, I grow in that relationship, not because I'm trying to maintain my salvation or earn my salvation, but because he loves me that much. But because I know that there's nothing that can separate me, can snatch me out of my Savior's hand. And because I have that commitment, because I'm in that covenantal relationship, I walk in freedom. And you know what? It makes me want to read. It makes me want to serve. It makes me want to pray. It makes me want to worship. It makes me want to grow my relationship with him. And the more that I'm in a covenantal relationship with my bride, the more that I know that nothing can separate us because we stood up and took a vow till death do us part. Doesn't make me give up on all that service and doing it. It makes me want to serve her and love her and cherish her. It makes me want to grow our relationship. That's the freedom that is found only in marriage, blessed by God, in a covenantal relationship between a man and a woman. There is tremendous freedom in marriage. It is an amazing thing, but it requires a man who is committed to the Lord and committed to the marriage. And it takes a wife that is committed to the Lord and committed to the marriage, saying that regardless of our feelings, regardless of our circumstances, I am in this forever, till death do us part. That is what God promises for marriage. That is how we set apart these families from the world. That's how we rise up and be a church that defies all statistics. That's how we fight for our marriages. That's how we're committed to our marriages. And that's how we establish families that will glorify God in the way that we serve and love and are committed. That's how we best raise our boys. Not by making them first, but by prioritizing our marriage so that they can see what it means to have a husband and a wife that are committed to one another. Commitment is agape love. Agape love is a commitment that you make even when you don't feel like it. Our relationship with Jesus, there's freedom. The relationship in a covenantal marriage, there is tremendous freedom. Let's be that church that defies the statistics. Let's be that church that gives the example to our world of what it means to be in a marriage, rich or poor, sickness and in health, better or worse, till death do us part.